Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty familiar to most folks.
Yeah.
The Christmas story
Right.
from Luke chapter 2,
Yep.
verses 1 through 20.
Absolutely.
We're going to unpack this a little bit and see what we can see this time around.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating how even stories that you think you know really well, like you can always discover something new.
Right.
You dig a little deeper or look at it from a different perspective.
Right. And we are going to be looking at this story today from the perspective of Dr. David Jeremiah,
Yeah.
whose YouTube channel, I have to admit, was a new discovery for me, but I found it to be really insightful.
Me too.
So let's jump in.
Okay.
The story starts, of course, with Joseph and Mary having to go to Bethlehem
Right.
for the census.
Yeah.
Um,
That whole thing always kind of felt like just a detail that had to be there to get them to Bethlehem.
it does, doesn't it?
Right. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But Dr. Jeremiah pointed out that there's actually a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, he made me think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, the census was really, the Romans kind of flexing their muscles.
Yeah, it was all about control.
Yeah.
Showing everybody who's really in charge.
Right. And so for the Jewish people to have to participate in this
Yeah.
must have been a very, I don't know.
Resentful kind
Yeah.
of experience.
Yeah. So that's kind of the backdrop of this whole story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they make this long journey and,
Oh, yeah?
Mary's, very pregnant.
Very pregnant.
And then they get there and there's the famous no room at the inn.
Right.
And, as a kid, I always thought of this as, like the Holiday Inn was full.
Right.
Or something,
But a vacancy.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't like that at all.
Yeah.
It was more likely, maybe a crowded house where there just wasn't any space, or maybe like a designated area
Right.
for travelers.
But either way, I mean, they're,
Yeah.
there's no place for them.
Yeah. They're essentially homeless.
Right.
It's a pretty stark image.
And so, of course, the baby is born.
Right.
And we get to the part of the story with the shepherds.
Right.
Now, why shepherds?
I know.
Out of all the people that you could choose,
Yeah.
why shepherds?
Well, they weren't exactly the most respected members of society.
No.
They were kind of looked down on,
Right.
seen as rough around the edges, maybe not even that trustworthy.
So, I mean, do you think that Luke was trying to make a point by
Oh, absolutely.
choosing them?
I think he was saying, look, God's love and this message of salvation, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from,
Right.
shepherds included.
And then this angel appears to them.
Right.
And they are terrified.
Terrified. Yeah.
Understandably so.
Oh, right.
I mean, talk about a shock.
Right. And the whole sky lights up.
Yeah. The glory of the Lord.
Glory of the Lord.
And then this whole heavenly host shows up, right? A whole army of angels.
Yeah. Praising God.
So this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
It's not just like,
It's not just some random event.
yeah,
This is a cosmic event.
this is huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the angel tells them to go and find the baby.
Right.
And he gives them this very specific sign.
Yeah, he says you'll find him wrapped in swaddling clothes,
Right.
lying in a manger.
Okay, so a manger.
Yeah.
We're talking about a feeding trough.
Yeah, for animals.
Right. So the king, the Son of God, the Messiah,
Right.
is lying in,
A feeding trough.
yeah.
In a stable.
So not exactly a palace.
Not exactly how you'd picture the arrival of a king.
No, not at all.
It's a pretty powerful statement about humility.
And then we see Mary,
Yeah.
and her reaction is very interesting.
Yeah, she's not running around telling everyone.
Yeah.
She's just kind of taking it all in.
Yeah, pondering these things in her heart.
Yeah, treasuring them up,
Yeah.
which I think is really telling.
Yeah.
It shows her depth of character. Yeah.
And it kind of hints at the important role she's going to play in Jesus's life
Yeah.
and in the story of his ministry.
Yeah, so then you've got the shepherds,
Right.
and they do the opposite of Mary.
Yeah.
They go and see the baby,
Yep.
and then they run off and tell everybody.
Yeah, they can't keep it to themselves.
Right. They're like the first Christmas evangelists.
Yeah, spreading the good news.
Yeah.
So you have this contrast between Mary's quiet contemplation
Yeah.
and the shepherds just like blasting it out there.
It's an interesting contrast.
It is.
And it shows that, there are different ways to respond
Yeah,
to faith, to spiritual experience.
absolutely.
So we've got all these contrasting ideas in this story.
Right.
Humility versus grandeur,
Mhm.
social outcasts chosen as the first witnesses,
Yeah.
quiet reflection versus bold proclamation.
Right.
And, it's a story that's been told and retold for centuries.
It has.
But it never gets old.
Never.
And it really makes you think. It does.
If you were there that night, what would your reaction be?
Yeah.
what would you do?
Would you be filled with awe?
Yeah.
Would you be terrified?
Yeah.
Would you be skeptical?
Right.
I mean, how would you process this whole experience of seeing the Messiah
Yeah.
born in such humble circumstances?
That's a great question to think about.
It is.
It challenges us to think about our own faith
Yeah,
and how we respond to the miraculous
absolutely.
and how we would have reacted if we had been there that night.
Yeah, it's a story that just keeps on giving.
It really does.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Christmas story.
absolutely.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.